The movie is set in the future. Greenhouse gases have caused the polar glaciers to melt, flooding coastal cities. To combat overpopulation, people who want to have children must apply to have children. In this world, robots that don't need food or recharging are used everywhere. The movie begins in the office of Cybertronics, where its owner, Professor Alan Hobby, demonstrates the failings of modern robots and declares that he intends to create an artificial intelligence capable of love. He specifies that he is talking about emotional love, such as the love of a child for its mother, and he says that the love will not be programmed, but real, and the robot will even be able to dream. 20 months later, the husband and wife Swintons arrive at the cryostatic center, where their son Martin is frozen. Martin is sick with an incurable and fatal disease, and through freezing, the Swintons want to keep the boy alive until a cure can be invented. Mother Monica has been visiting her son for 5 years and reading stories to him as if mourning him, and still can't settle down and accept reality. The doctor recommends a medication intervention for her to improve her mental health. Hoping to help her recover a little, her husband Henry, an employee of Cybertronics, agrees to participate in a test in which they can become a family for the company's newest machine, David. It's a prototype robot capable of love. Henry, whose family tragedy has made his family the best candidate for the test, brings David home. At first, Monica is furious, believing that her husband is trying to replace Martin. Later, however, Monica has maternal feelings and decides that she will keep him. Henry also informs her that if they leave David, she must use a special code to activate his love for her, which will be with him forever. However, if there ever comes a time when she no longer needs his love, David must be sent back to Cybertronics to be destroyed, as his love cannot be deactivated. Sometime after the initial misunderstandings, Monica, having gotten a little used to David, decides to activate the love program. She reads a list of words that will activate David's emotional component. When she does, David calls her mom and starts acting like a real child. To help David adjust even more, she gives him a robot teddy bear named Teddy, which once belonged to Martin. With the Swintons, things are going well until one day they invent a medicine that cures Martin. Martin does not treat David as a person, but as a toy or doll. One day, Martin asks their mother to read Pinocchio to them. David falls in love with the fairy tale in which a wooden puppet becomes a real boy thanks to a blue fairy. Martin, out of spite and jealousy, tries to get David in trouble in various ways. First, he persuades David to eat spinach, which causes David to malfunction and have to be cleaned. Another time, he suggests David cut off part of Monica's hair while she sleeps as a token of affection. But a waking Henry decides that David was trying to assault his wife. At Martin's birthday party, one of his friends decides to test David to see if he can feel pain. When David is poked with a knife, he panics and grabs onto Martin, and they both fall into the pool. It appears that David is trying to drown Martin. Henry decides that David is dangerous, and he manages to convince Monica to bring David back to destroy him. Monica tries to take David to Cybertronics under the pretense of going on a picnic, but she can't bring herself to turn David in for destruction and leaves him in the woods, along with Teddy. David is scared, confused, and wonders why his mother abandoned him. Meanwhile, male robot Gigolo Joe comes to the hotel room of a woman he meets regularly. He changes his appearance to suit her preferences and, upon entering the bedroom, finds her dead. The woman's husband shows up and sees Joe. Joe leaves the hotel in a hurry, realizing that the woman's husband will accuse him of murder. Joe cuts his license plate out of the body, knowing that he can be traced by it. Wandering through the woods, David comes to the conclusion that he has been abandoned because he is not real, like Martin, and that if he could find the blue fairy, like in the Pinocchio fairy tale, she could make him a real boy and then he could go home. He stumbles upon several forgotten, outdated, and broken robots who are searching through a pile of junk from Cybertronics for spare parts to repair themselves. Gigolo Joe is also chosen to join them. A balloon man named Lord Johnson Johnson appears, along with his men, and they capture some of the robots, including Joe and David. They are taken to a show where the robots are destroyed for the entertainment of the humans. The staff of the show see David and discover that he is a far more advanced robot than they have ever met, and offer to save him from destruction. However, Lord Johnson Johnson disagrees and grabs David, seeing his ring of destruction. The boy grabs onto Joe, and the two of them have to be dragged into the arena. David and Joe are strapped to a device that is supposed to pour acid on the robots. David starts screaming in fear like a real boy. The crowd, unprepared for such a show, riots. And amidst the resulting commotion, David and Joe are released by the staff and they escape. In the meantime, Hobby tries with the help of his staff to track down David, made in the image of his dead son. After escaping into the nearby woods, David tells Joe about his search for the Blue Fairy. Joe is sure they will find her in a place called Red City. Traveling by hitchhiking with teenagers, they reach the city, a major adult entertainment center that rivals Las Vegas and Disneyland. Their journey leads to a place where a 3D projection of a cartoon Einstein named Dr. No tells them that the Blue Fairy can be found at the end of the world where lions cry. Joe explains to David that Dr. No must have been referring to a place called Manhattan, where many robots have gone to and never returned from. David feels that they have an obligation to go to Manhattan despite the danger, but Joe tries to keep him away by saying that his mother doesn't love him. Joe wants David to stay in Red City, but the boy, realizing that Joe will go no further, bids him farewell. As David and Joe leave the building, Joe is picked up by the police. Seeing a car parked nearby, David takes over and manages to free Joe, after which he transfers to David's car and gets behind the wheel. They set off towards Manhattan. Their journey leads to a flooded New York City, a forbidden zone for robots, where they find the Cybertronics building, which has statues of weeping lions on it. David enters a room in which he finds another robot that looks just like him. However, sensing that this duplicate could be his competition for his mother's love, David destroys it. Joe runs away just in case. Professor Hobby appears and tells David that Hobby used Dr. Noe to bring David home. He also explains to the boy that the Blue Fairy is just a myth. David says that he thought he was the only one of his kind, and the professor replies that only his son was the only one, and David is just the first. The Hobby leaves David alone. David wanders around the office, finding various mechanical components as well as dozens of fully assembled David and Darlene robots in packages for consumers to purchase. The sight of them makes David feel even worse, as he realizes that he has lost his chance to find the Blue Fairy and will not be able to return his mother's love. David sits on the balcony of Cybertronics and then jumps into the water. As he is being carried underwater, he suddenly sees something glowing in the distance. Joe pulls David out of the water. The boy tells Joe that he saw the Blue Fairy and that she is down below. Suddenly, another manned ship appears and grabs Joe with an attraction field. David and Teddy pilot the vehicle and float into the depths of the flooded city, ending up in the ruins of the Coney Island amusement park. David steers the ship into a part of the park dedicated to fairy tales, and in the Pinocchio area they find a statue of a Blue Fairy. The ship's movements cause the nearest Ferris wheel to collapse, causing their amphibian to become trapped next to the statue. This doesn't bother David in the slightest, and he is thrilled to have finally found the Blue Fairy. He then begins to pray to her, wishing he could be a real boy. 2,000 years pass, during which the world is enveloped by a new ice age and humans become extinct. The ice is unearthed by evolved robots from the future, trying to study the remnants of the past culture. A team excavating at a Coney Island amusement park finds David and Teddy. Once the ice is cleared away, David, still a laborer, goes to the Blue Fairy statue. Upon touching it, the statue shatters into pieces. Using David and Teddy's memories, the robots of the future decide to help and create a replica of the Swinton house in David's mind, where David meets a creature that resembles the Blue Fairy. David wants to be a real boy and see Monica again. The Blue Fairy explains that she can't make him real, and that 2,000 years have passed. Monica is long dead. The fairy tells David that they can add other people so David won't be so bored. But the boy only wants Monica. The fairy replies that she can only recreate people whose bodies or tissues they have found. Teddy shows the strands of hair that David once cut from Monica's head, which the teddy bear has kept. David asks again for the Blue Fairy to bring Monica back. The fairy says she can do it now. David goes to his room to wait. After a while, one of the robots from the future comes to talk to David about his desire to bring Monica back to life. The robot explains that in the past, resurrecting people was short-lived, and that such resurrected people only lived for one day. Even with this information, David still wants to see Monica. The robots of the future grant his wish. The resurrected Monica and David spend the whole day together, having fun and doing all kinds of things. When it is finally time to go to bed, the resurrected Monica tells David that she loves him. After hearing these words, David falls asleep content and finally happy. That's all for today. What do you think about the movie Artificial Intelligence? Write your opinion in the comments to this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to be the first to see new videos. And if you like my videos a lot, share them with your friends.